The gun beneath the table was aimed at Evelyn Hart's ribs, but the most dangerous thing in the ballroom was not the weapon. It was the fact that Roman Valenti had just realized she was lying to him. Across the glittering charity gala, beneath a ceiling of crystal chandeliers and television lights, Evelyn sat beside Victor Halden with a champagne glass trembling between her fingers. Victor's smile remained polished for the cameras, but under the white linen tablecloth, his hand crushed her wrist while the barrel of a compact pistol pressed into the soft curve of her side. Hundreds of Chicago's wealthiest guests applauded as the master of ceremonies praised Victor's generosity. No one noticed the beautiful, chubby woman in the deep burgundy gown trying not to breathe too quickly. No one except Roman. He stood near the back of the ballroom in a black suit, tall and broad-shouldered, his rough stubble shadowing a scarred jaw. His steel-gray eyes fixed on her with the cold concentration of a man who had survived too many betrayals to ignore one more. Evelyn knew he could not hear the applause. 6 years earlier, an explosion had taken most of his hearing and left half the city afraid of the silence that followed him. But Roman did not need sound to understand danger. He watched hands, mouths, reflections, the smallest changes in a person's face. Evelyn lowered her free hand beneath the table where Victor could not see it. Her fingers moved once. Wine cellar. Again. 11. Then the final sign. Trap. Roman's expression did not change, but every man positioned around the ballroom reached inside his jacket at the same moment. Victor felt Evelyn's wrist shift. His smile tightened. You should have remembered, he whispered near her ear, that your mafia boss cannot hear you scream. Evelyn looked across the room at Roman and saw something far more frightening than anger in his eyes. She saw that he had understood every word. 6 weeks earlier, Evelyn Hart had been the waitress. No one at Aurelia House believed a powerful man would ever notice. On the night she met Roman Valenti, she had already worked 9 hours and still had 4 more to survive. Aurelia House occupied the top floor of a restored Beaux-Arts hotel overlooking the Chicago River, a place of marble columns, velvet chairs, imported wine, and carefully rehearsed smiles. Politicians held private dinners behind frosted glass. Corporate attorneys celebrated mergers over steaks that cost more than Evelyn's weekly grocery budget. The restaurant called its service elegant. The staff called it war in formal shoes. Evelyn stood near the service station, checking a handwritten adjustment to Table 14's allergy order, when Vanessa Cole swept toward her with a silver tray balanced on one manicured hand. Vanessa was everything Aurelia House preferred its waitresses to be. Tall, slim, sharply dressed, and confident enough to mistake cruelty for charm. She placed the tray against Evelyn's chest. Table 27 is yours. Evelyn glanced toward the reservation screen. That's your section. Not anymore. Vanessa leaned closer, lowering her voice just enough to make the nearby servers listen. Go serve the deaf guy. Maybe he won't notice how desperate you look. 2 waiters laughed. Another pretended to cough into his hand. Evelyn felt the familiar heat rise beneath her fair skin, but she refused to give Vanessa the satisfaction of seeing her break. She was 33 years old, soft and full-figured, with a round, beautiful face that strangers often mistook for gentleness without limits. They noticed her curves before her competence, her patience before her intelligence, and her uniform before the fact that she had quietly corrected half the restaurant's inventory errors for 3 years. Fine, Evelyn said. I'll take the table. Vanessa smiled. Of course you will. Evelyn lifted the tray and crossed the dining room. Table 27 sat near the floor-to-ceiling windows, slightly separated from the other guests. The man seated there wore a charcoal black suit with no tie, the top button of his white shirt left open. He was tall even while sitting, broad through the shoulders, with dark hair brushed back carelessly and silver beginning at the temples. Faint scars marked the side of his neck. His hands rested beside a leather notebook, one knuckle visibly damaged, as if elegance had been placed over a life built with harder tools. He looked less like a businessman than a man who had learned how to make businessmen nervous. Evelyn approached from the front so he could see her. Good evening, sir. He raised his eyes but did not respond. Vanessa's voice drifted from behind Evelyn. Don't bother. He can't hear you. A few nearby employees laughed. The man's gaze moved past Evelyn toward Vanessa. then returned to Evelyn's face. There was no embarrassment in his expression, only observation. Evelyn placed the tray down, stepped fully into his line of sight, and used the limited American Sign Language she remembered from volunteering at a community center years earlier. "Good evening. My name is Evelyn." The man went still. For the first time, his controlled expression shifted. Not dramatically, but enough for her to see genuine surprise. His hands moved with far greater fluency than hers. "Do you sign?" Evelyn gave an apologetic smile and signed back. "A little. Very little." One corner of his mouth lifted. He opened the notebook and wrote in clean, deliberate handwriting. "Would you prefer that I write, sign slowly, or point to the menu?" Evelyn read it, then looked up. "Whatever makes you comfortable." She immediately realized he might not catch every word, so she repeated the sentence more slowly without exaggerating her lips, then wrote beneath his question, "You choose." He studied those two words longer than necessary. Then he wrote, "Most people choose for me." Evelyn felt something tighten quietly in her chest. Most people are too busy proving they are helpful to ask what help actually looks like. His eyes sharpened with interest. He wrote again, "You say that as if you learned it the hard way." Evelyn glanced toward Vanessa, who was whispering to another server. "I work in hospitality." The man looked at Vanessa too, then back at Evelyn. A silent laugh moved through his shoulders. She showed him the specials, answered questions by writing short notes, and never hovered. When he pointed to a steak, she asked how he wanted it cooked. When he ordered wine, she brought the bottle so he could confirm the label himself, instead of assuming he would not care. Halfway through the meal, an elderly guest at the next table dropped her purse. Evelyn retrieved it, noticed the woman's hands were shaking, and quietly asked whether she needed assistance without attracting attention. When a young server entered the wrong charge on table 14's bill, Evelyn corrected it before the guests could be overcharged. The man at table 27 noticed everything. When she returned with coffee, he signed slowly enough for her to follow. Kindness is expensive in a place like this. Evelyn considered the sentence before answering aloud and in writing. "Only when cruel people are in charge." His eyes held hers. Something in his face softened, revealing not weakness but exhaustion, the quiet loneliness of someone accustomed to being feared, managed, or discussed as if he were not present. He wrote, "And what happens when cruel people believe kindness is weakness?" Evelyn folded her hands over the edge of the tray. "Then they usually learn too late that those are not the same thing." For the first time that evening, the man smiled fully. It changed him. The danger did not disappear, but it became human. Across the room, Vanessa noticed and rolled her eyes. She approached with 2 empty plates, pausing close enough to be seen. "Careful, Evelyn," she said loudly. "A man like that might think you're flirting, though I suppose he should be grateful anyone is trying." The words landed like broken glass. Evelyn's face tightened, but before she could respond, the man turned his head toward a polished silver service tray resting on a nearby stand. Vanessa's mouth was reflected clearly in its surface. He had read every word. His smile vanished. The front doors of Aurelia House opened. A rugged man in a dark navy suit entered first, scanning the room with the efficient alertness of someone trained to find threats before threats found him. Behind him came 3 more men. 2 others already seated at separate tables placed their napkins down simultaneously. The restaurant manager, Daniel Price, emerged from the private office and stopped so abruptly that a hostess nearly walked into him. His face lost color. "Mr. Valenti," he said. The name seemed to move through the dining room even though no one repeated it. Roman Valenti. Evelyn had heard it before, usually spoken in lowered voices. The Valenti family controlled shipping contracts, construction firms, private security companies, and enough political secrets to make powerful people avoid asking how any of it had begun. Roman was rumored to have ended a war between 3 criminal crews without a single public threat. He was also rumored to have buried men for far less than what Vanessa had just said. Roman placed one hand on the table and stood. Every man positioned throughout the restaurant stood with him. The movement was perfectly synchronized. Chairs scraped against marble in one low, terrible wave. Conversation stopped. Silverware froze above plates. Vanessa's face emptied of all confidence. Evelyn remained beside the table, still holding the coffee pot. Roman looked at her, not Vanessa, not the trembling manager. He tore a page from his notebook and wrote one final message. Thank you for seeing the man before the reputation. He folded the paper once and placed it in Evelyn's hand. Then his gaze shifted to Vanessa. He did not threaten her. He did not need to. The absence of a threat frightened her more. The rugged man in the navy suit stepped beside Roman and spoke slowly enough for him to read. The car is ready. Roman nodded and walked toward the exit, surrounded by men whose attention never stopped moving. Just before he crossed the doorway, he looked back at Evelyn. For one brief second, the feared mafia boss seemed less interested in who had insulted him than in the woman who had refused to join them. Then he disappeared into the night. The dining room remained silent until the last black vehicle pulled away from the curb. Vanessa was the first to speak. It was a joke. Daniel turned toward her with a look Evelyn had never seen before. You mocked Roman Valenti in front of his security detail. Vanessa swallowed. I didn't know who he was. Daniel looked at Evelyn. Neither did she. That was the end of the conversation, but not the end of the night. Near closing, Evelyn went downstairs to reconcile the wine inventory. Numbers calmed her. Shelves did not gossip. Invoices did not judge her body or smile while stealing credit for her work. She checked 3 deliveries, corrected a duplicate entry, then stopped at an order she did not recognize. One rare bottle of Chateau Margaux had been charged to a private table that did not exist. The order code read V2711. Evelyn frowned. Table 27 had been Roman's table. There had been no Table 11 reservation. She searched the previous month and found the same pattern. Rare bottles assigned to non-existent tables, each followed by unusually large event service fees. The numbers were too precise to be mistakes. Evelyn pulled out her phone and aimed the camera at the invoice. Working late? Victor Halden's voice came from behind her. She turned sharply. Victor stood between 2 shelves, immaculate in a midnight blue suit, his silver hair perfectly arranged. To the public, he was Aurelia House's most generous investor, a celebrated philanthropist who funded hospitality scholarships and disability access programs. His smile was warm enough for charity photographs and cold enough to make Evelyn lower her phone. I'm correcting inventory, she said. Outside your job description. Someone has to make sure the numbers match. Victor stepped closer and glanced at the invoice. His expression did not change, but the air around him did. Curiosity is admirable, Evelyn. He lifted the paper from the desk and folded it neatly. Until it becomes expensive. 10 minutes later, Evelyn left through the staff entrance with Roman's note hidden in her coat pocket. Rain had begun to fall over Chicago, turning the sidewalks black and glossy beneath the streetlights. She walked 1 block, then 2. A dark sedan moved slowly behind her. When she crossed the street, it crossed too. Evelyn's pulse quickened. She entered a brightly lit convenience store and stood near the front window. The sedan stopped across the street. Her phone vibrated. The message came from an unknown number. Do not go home. The man following you does not work for me. Roman Valenti. Evelyn stared at the message until the words blurred beneath the harsh convenience store lights. Outside, rain streaked across the glass while the dark sedan remained parked beneath a broken street lamp. She could not see the driver's face. She could only make out the shape of a man behind the wheel and the faint glow of a phone near his hand. Her first instinct was to call the police. Her second was to wonder how Roman Valenti had found her number, and why the fact that he knew where she was frightened her almost as much as the car outside. Another message appeared. Stay where there are cameras. A man named Luca Ferraro is entering in 30 seconds. He will identify himself. You are free to leave with him or refuse. Evelyn looked toward the door just as the bell above it rang. The rugged man in the navy suit from Aurelia House stepped inside, rain darkening the shoulders of his coat. He stopped several feet away and held both hands where she could see them. Evelyn Hart? She nodded cautiously. Luca Ferraro. I work for Roman Valenti. His eyes flicked toward the sedan across the street. The man outside does not. How do I know you do? Luca almost smiled. You don't, which is why I'm not asking you to get into a car with me without proof. He placed his phone on the counter between them. A live video call filled the screen. Roman sat at a table in what appeared to be a quiet cafe, his leather notebook beside a cup of untouched coffee. He looked directly into the camera and signed slowly. "You choose." Evelyn recognized the words from dinner. Something in her chest loosened, though not completely. She looked at Luca. "Where are we going?" "A public place. Open all night. Cameras at every entrance. And if I say no, then we stay here until the sedan leaves, and I call a marked patrol car." That answer mattered. Evelyn picked up her bag. "Fine, but I am not going anywhere private." "Roman expected you to say that." The dark sedan pulled away the moment Luca stepped outside with her. He did not chase it. He photographed the license plate, guided Evelyn toward a waiting SUV, and opened the rear door. No one sat beside her. No one took her phone. No one touched her arm. Even so, every instinct told her she was crossing into a world where courtesy could hide as much danger as cruelty. The cafe occupied the ground floor of a hotel near the river. It was bright, nearly empty, and staffed by two tired baristas who looked more interested in cleaning the espresso machine than in the feared man sitting near the windows. Roman stood when Evelyn approached. Without the restaurant, the bodyguards, or the silence that had frozen an entire dining room, he seemed less like a legend and more like a man carrying too much control inside his body. His black shirt was open at the collar. Rain clung to his dark hair. A pale scar disappeared beneath the edge of his jaw. He pulled out the chair across from him but did not touch her. Evelyn remained standing. "Did you have someone follow me?" Roman watched her mouth carefully, then wrote, "My people followed the man following you." "That is not what I asked." He held her gaze and wrote again, "After you left Aurelia House, I asked Luca to make sure you reached home safely." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "Without telling me." Roman's eyes changed slightly. He understood the accusation. "Yes, that is not protection. That is surveillance." Luca shifted near the counter, but Roman raised one hand, stopping him from interfering. He wrote more slowly this time. "You are right." The answer disarmed her more than an argument would have. Roman continued, "I had reason to believe someone at the restaurant was watching you. I chose caution without permission. I should have told you." Evelyn sat down, though she kept her coat on. "Why would anyone be watching me?" Roman opened a folder. Inside were photographs of Aurelia House deliveries, private event invoices, and 3 men entering the service alley on different nights. One of them was Victor Halden. Another Evelyn recognized as a supplier who never entered through the dining room. The third she had never seen. Roman tapped a photograph of a black briefcase being carried into the building. Then he wrote, "Aurelia House may be moving money through false wine purchases and private event charges." Evelyn thought of the code V2711. Her eyes went to the folder. Roman noticed. "You found something." It was not a question. Evelyn hesitated. An invoice. A rare bottle assigned to a table that didn't exist. Roman leaned forward. "Code? V2711. Luca immediately pulled out his phone. Roman's face hardened, but not with surprise. Recognition. Evelyn saw it. "You know what it means," Roman wrote. "Not yet." That is not the same as no. Silence stretched between them. Roman closed the folder and met her eyes. Then he wrote, "Victor Halden has used restaurants to hide money before. We have never proven how. If he saw you reviewing a coded invoice, he may believe you can." Evelyn thought of Victor's voice in the wine cellar. "Curiosity is admirable until it becomes expensive." "He threatened me." Roman's stillness became dangerous. Exact words. She repeated them. Luca's expression tightened. Roman did not move for several seconds. Then he wrote, "You cannot go home tonight." Evelyn laughed once, without humor. "You do not get to decide that. Your apartment may be watched." "Then tell the police." Roman glanced toward Luca. Luca answered, "We can. But if local law enforcement is compromised, a patrol car tells Halden exactly what you know and where you are. And your solution is what? Hide me in a mansion behind armed men?" Roman slid a second folder across the table. Inside were photographs of a guarded apartment building, a temporary leave agreement from Aurelia House, and contact information for a federal investigator named Maya Brooks. Secure apartment. Paid leave. Your own phone. Your own key. No obligation to stay. Evelyn stared at the pages. You prepared all of this before asking me what I wanted. Roman's gaze did not waver. He wrote, because I prepare before danger arrives. That may work for your men. It does not work for me. She pushed the folder back. You don't get to turn my life into a locked room because your enemies noticed me. For the first time, something like frustration crossed Roman's face. He signed quickly, too fast for Evelyn to follow. Luca translated carefully. He says the people watching you are not interested in frightening you. They are deciding whether you are useful or disposable. Evelyn looked back at Roman. And what are you deciding? The question landed harder than she expected. Roman's hand stopped above the notebook. At last, he wrote, whether you will let me help without making you fear me too. The answer was not perfect, but it was honest enough to keep her seated. Evelyn finally agreed to spend the night in a secured guest apartment owned by one of Roman's legitimate companies, but only after setting conditions. She kept her phone. She received the address before entering the car. Luca gave her the name of the building manager and the direct number for Maya Brooks. No one entered the apartment without her permission. Roman accepted every condition without protest. Before she left the cafe, he placed copies of the invoices in front of her. You saw something trained investigators missed, he wrote. Show me. Evelyn studied the documents. At first, the pages looked ordinary bottle numbers, table assignments, event fees, delivery dates. Then she saw the pattern. The first two numbers are table references, she said, but not real table numbers. They identify private rooms and service corridors. The last two are dates. Luca pulled a chair closer. Evelyn pointed to the quantities. These are not bottle counts. A 6-bottle case should appear as 6 units, but they're writing 60, 600, 6,000. It's scale. Roman watched her hands move across the page. And these vintages don't exist. They look legitimate to someone reading financial records, but anyone who works with the wine list would know they're fake. She found another code. This one appears 4 times before large event deposits. The fake vintage identifies the destination company. Luca stared at the documents. Our accountants thought these were inflated purchases. They are, Evelyn said. But the inflation is the language. Roman's attention remained fixed on her, and for the first time that night, the fear in the room shifted into something else. Respect. Not the surprised respect of a man discovering a waitress could think, but the sharper recognition of a powerful man realizing he needed her mind. He wrote, how long would it take you to decode the rest? A few hours. Will you? Evelyn looked at him. I will help expose Victor. I will not help protect your reputation. Roman accepted the distinction with a slight nod. Over the next 3 days, Evelyn worked from Roman's private library, a room lined with dark wood, old maps, and shelves full of books marked with handwritten notes. Roman gave her space but remained nearby. Sometimes they communicated through short written exchanges. Sometimes Evelyn spoke while he watched her lips. When the light was poor, he asked her to repeat herself instead of pretending he understood. That small honesty mattered. She learned that Roman had lost most of his hearing in a warehouse explosion 6 years earlier. His younger brother had died beside him. Afterward, Roman wrote, people began speaking around me. Even men who feared me thought silence made me less dangerous. Evelyn looked at the scars near his neck. Did it? He signed one word. No. Then he added in writing, it made me notice everything. Evelyn smiled faintly. That sounds exhausting. Roman's expression softened. It is. She told him about 5 years at Aurelia House, the extra duties she performed without promotion, the managers who praised her reliability but chose slimmer, more polished employees for leadership roles. People do not always insult you directly, she said. Sometimes they simply build a world where you are never considered. Roman's fingers moved slowly enough for her to understand. I considered you the moment you refused to pity me. The words left her unexpectedly vulnerable. She looked away, pretending to study an invoice. Roman did not push. That restraint made the silence between them warmer. On the fourth night, Luca called just after midnight. Someone had entered Evelyn's apartment. Roman and Evelyn arrived with building security 20 minutes later. The lock had not been forced. Nothing valuable was missing. Her laptop remained on the desk. Cash sat untouched in a kitchen drawer. But the photograph of the invoice had been taken, along with Roman's handwritten note from the night they met. Evelyn stood in the center of the room, shaken by the intimacy of the theft. They wanted me to know they had been here. Roman's face hardened. He wrote, "You are moving tonight. I already agreed to security. This apartment is no longer secure." "Then fix the security." Roman signed sharply. Luca did not translate. Evelyn understood the anger anyway. "Do not order me." Roman stopped. The room became still. After a long moment he wrote, "Tell me what you need." Evelyn breathed slowly. "I need a place I can leave without permission. I keep my phone. No one listens to private calls. No tracking my conversations. No decisions about my safety without me in the room." Roman read the list, then signed, agreed. Luca waited until Evelyn stepped into the bedroom to pack before speaking to Roman. "You are not protecting her if you make her afraid of you too." Roman looked toward the closed door, his expression unreadable. Later that night, inside a secure Valenti residence, Evelyn returned to the invoices. She found a shell company connected to 3 coded transfers. The company name was North Shore Freight Holdings. She searched the public ownership records. Her stomach dropped. The parent company belonged to Valenti Maritime. Roman entered the room and saw the screen. Evelyn turned toward him slowly. "You knew." He did not deny it. "How long?" Roman wrote. 2 months. "You knew Victor was using one of your companies. I suspected someone inside the company was helping him. And you brought me here because I could prove how much." Roman reached for the notebook, but Evelyn stepped back. "Was I a witness you wanted to save, or a risk you wanted close enough to control?" He looked at her, and for once the feared Roman Valenti had no immediate answer. That silence hurt more than a lie. Evelyn grabbed her coat. Roman moved toward the door, then stopped himself before blocking her path. She walked past him without permission and without looking back. As the elevator doors closed, the question remained between them. Roman had protected her life, but he had also hidden the truth because he feared what her honesty might cost him. What do you think? Was Roman protecting Evelyn, or controlling her before she could expose his family? Tell us what you would have done in her place. Evelyn returned to Aurelia House the next morning to collect her belongings. Vanessa found her near the service corridor, pale and tearful. "Victor knows you have the records," she whispered. "He threatened my job. He threatened all of us." She pressed a small brass key into Evelyn's hand. "The proof you need is downstairs, in his private records room." Evelyn searched her face. "Why are you helping me?" Vanessa lowered her eyes. "Because I was cruel to you, and now I think I helped something worse." Against every instinct, Evelyn went down to the wine cellar alone. The records, room door opened with the key. She stepped inside. The door locked behind her. Darkness swallowed the room. Then Victor Halden's voice came from somewhere beyond the shelves. "I knew jealousy would bring you back faster than fear." Victor Halden stepped from behind the wine shelves with the same calm smile he wore at charity dinners and press conferences. 2 men stood behind him, both dressed in dark suits, both positioned carefully enough to block the only visible exit. Evelyn tightened her fingers around the brass key Vanessa had given her. "Where is she?" Victor adjusted one silver cuff link. "Vanessa?" "Somewhere upstairs, convincing herself that betrayal becomes less ugly when fear is involved." Evelyn looked toward the locked door. "You threatened her." "I offered her a promotion. Ambition handled the rest." His answer was so casual that it chilled her more than anger would have. Victor moved toward a small table beneath the cellar light. On it rested a leather folder, a pen, and a cashier's check made out to Evelyn Hart for $250,000. "Sit down." "No." Victor's smile thinned. "You have mistaken Roman Valenti's attention for power of your own, and you have mistaken a locked door for control." One of the men behind him shifted, but Victor raised a hand. That is exactly what Roman finds so attractive about you. You speak like someone who has never been punished for telling the truth. Evelyn glanced around the room. Cases of wine rose on both sides, leaving narrow corridors between the shelves. A security camera hung above the records, to room door, but its indicator light was dark. Victor followed her gaze. There will be no recording of this conversation. Then why bother pretending it is a conversation? He opened the leather folder. Inside was a typed statement bearing her full name. Evelyn read the first lines and felt her stomach turn. The document claimed Roman Valenti had ordered her to alter Aurelia House inventory, create false invoices, and help conceal illegal transfers through Valenti Maritime. It also stated that she had accepted cash in exchange for her cooperation. You want me to accuse Roman? I want you to tell a version of the truth people will believe. This is not the truth. Victor tapped the check. Truth is whatever survives long enough to become evidence. Evelyn looked at the statement again. And if I sign, you leave Chicago tonight. New identification, a private account, enough money to build a life where no one knows your name. And if I refuse? Victor's expression remained pleasant. Then the federal investigation discovers that a financially struggling waitress had access to every false invoice in this building. They find altered files on her computer, unexplained deposits in her account, and witnesses who remember how desperately she wanted a promotion. Evelyn's pulse quickened, but she kept her voice steady. You already planted evidence. I prepared for resistance. He leaned closer. Roman did the same thing. Do not romanticize him because he wrote you kind notes and looked wounded in expensive rooms. He brought you into his house because he needed to know how much you understood. He watched you without permission. He hid his company's involvement. The difference between Roman Valenti and me is that he needs you to believe his cage is protection. The words struck because part of them was true. Roman had controlled information. He had made decisions before asking her. He had needed her skill as much as he wanted her safe. Victor saw the doubt in her face and smiled. There it is. The moment the fairy tale becomes business. Evelyn lowered her eyes to the statement. For one dangerous second, she imagined taking the money. She imagined leaving Chicago, changing her name, finding a quiet town where no one followed her home or searched her apartment. She imagined waking without wondering whether Roman's enemies had placed a target on her back. Then she read the final paragraph. It stated that she alone had created the coded wine system and transferred funds without Victor Halden's knowledge. The truth became clear. You are not sending me away. Victor's gaze sharpened. Excuse me? Evelyn raised the document. This does not make me a witness. It makes me the architect. The moment I sign this, you do not need to protect me. You need me dead before I can change my story. Silence settled over the room. Victor's smile disappeared. You are more observant than your coworkers suggested. That has been true for years. She tore the cashier's check in half. One of Victor's men stepped forward. Evelyn did not move. I will not sign it. Victor studied her as if reassessing the cost of keeping her alive. Then he closed the folder. You will. Not tonight, perhaps. Tomorrow evening. He explained the plan with the cold patience of a man describing an event schedule. Aurelia House would host the annual Halden Foundation Gala, attended by politicians, donors, financial reporters, and federal representatives. Evelyn would be brought before the cameras and publicly identify Roman as the man behind the laundering network. At the same time, Victor's final offshore accounts would be emptied and the original records destroyed. If Evelyn refused, the evidence planted against her would be released. If Roman attempted a violent rescue, innocent guests would die, and the city would see exactly what Victor wanted it to see. A mafia boss silencing a frightened waitress. By midnight, Victor said, Roman loses his empire, you lose your credibility, and I leave this country as a respected philanthropist betrayed by criminals. Evelyn looked at him. You are afraid of him. Victor's jaw tightened. I understand him. No, you understand his power. You are afraid he might choose something more important than power. Victor's hand struck the table hard enough to make the wine glasses jump. For the first time, his polished mask cracked. He ordered his men to take Evelyn through the private corridor and keep her under guard until the gala. Across the city, Roman stood in the center of his security office, while footage from Aurelia House played across 3 screens. The camera showed Evelyn entering the service corridor beside Vanessa. It showed Vanessa handing her a key. Then every camera near the cellar went dark. Luca Ferraro entered carrying Evelyn's phone, found abandoned inside a restroom wastebasket. Her signal stopped 14 minutes ago. Roman signed one command: "Bring the cars." Luca did not move. "We cannot storm Aurelia House." Roman's eyes became hard. "Find another entrance. Victor wants you to react like that." Luca stepped closer, making sure Roman could read his lips. "The gala begins tomorrow. Federal agents, television crews, city officials. If we enter with armed men, he turns Evelyn into evidence against you." Roman's hands moved sharply. "She may not have until tomorrow." Before Luca could answer, Maya Brooks entered the room with 2 federal investigators. Roman's security team moved instinctively toward their weapons, but Roman stopped them. Maya placed a sealed folder on the table. "Victor has prepared a public accusation against you. He has also started transferring funds through North Shore Freight Holdings." Roman's expression did not change. Maya continued, "We can freeze the accounts and enter Aurelia House under federal authority, but we need the complete Valenti ledger." Roman stared at her. Luca's face tightened. Maya knew exactly what she was asking for. The complete ledger contained more than Victor's transactions. It documented old payments, compromised officials, illegal contracts, and the remaining criminal operations Roman had spent 6 years trying to separate from the legitimate side of his family. Turning it over would not simply expose Victor. It could destroy Valenti Maritime, collapse hotel and construction deals, and send men loyal to Roman to prison. It might also implicate Roman himself. Roman signed, "What happens if I refuse?" "You attempt a private rescue. Victor releases the false evidence. We lose the legal case, and every person in that gala becomes a potential hostage." Roman looked toward the screen showing the final image of Evelyn before the cameras went dark. Maya placed another page beside the ledger request. It was a handwritten note Evelyn had left in Roman's library after their argument. Luca had found it beneath the invoices. "Protection means nothing without trust." Roman read the sentence twice. His face remained controlled, but the hand holding the page tightened. Maya spoke more quietly. "You asked what surrendering the ledger will cost. Your shipping company, your hotel contracts, several members of your organization, possibly your freedom." Roman lifted his eyes. "And if I give it to you, we coordinate the rescue, we freeze Victor's accounts, we arrest everyone we can prove is involved. But once you sign, there is no taking it back." Luca looked at Roman. "Your father built that company." Roman signed without hesitation. "My brother died because men like Victor believed the company mattered more than people." He opened the secure cabinet behind his desk, removed a black ledger and an encrypted drive, and placed both in front of Maya. Then he signed 3 words: "Give her everything." At Aurelia House, Vanessa stood outside Victor's private office and heard her own name through the door. "She has served her purpose," one of Victor's men said. "What happens after the gala?" Victor answered without emotion. "The waitress disappears. Vanessa becomes the employee who helped her escape with Valenti money. 2 guilty women, 1 convenient story." Vanessa covered her mouth to stop herself from gasping. She had told herself she was protecting her job. She had told herself Victor only wanted the records. She had told herself Evelyn would be frightened, not harmed. Now every excuse collapsed at once. Vanessa slipped into the empty coat room, locked the door, and sent Luca a photograph of the gala seating chart. She marked the private elevator, the wine cellar, and the chair assigned to Evelyn beside Victor. Then she sent Evelyn a message, knowing the phone had probably been taken. "I am sorry. I did not know what he planned." Evelyn never received. Mas later found a chance to whisper through the door where Evelyn was held. Evelyn answered from the other side. "Help stop him. Apologies come after accountability." The words cut deeper than anger. The following evening, Aurelia House glittered as if nothing beneath it were rotten. Crystal chandeliers spilled light over politicians, television hosts, business leaders, and donors dressed in black tie. Cameras lined the red carpet. A string quartet played near the ballroom entrance. Victor Halden entered smiling, accepting congratulations for a lifetime of philanthropy. Evelyn arrived through a private service corridor wearing a deep burgundy gown chosen to make her appear elegant, fragile, and believable. Her dark auburn hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders. The dress flattered her full feminine figure, but she felt less like a guest than evidence being prepared for display. Victor took her wrist and guided her to the table beside him. "Smile," he said. "The country is about to meet the woman Roman Valenti corrupted." Evelyn looked around the ballroom. She saw Luca near the west wall. Maya stood beside a group of federal officials. Agents were positioned near the exits, but Victor's men were there too, dressed as private security and catering staff. Then the room changed. Roman entered without announcement. He wore a black suit and no tie, his broad frame moving through the crowd with quiet authority. Several guests stepped aside. The old fear followed him, but something was different. He had already surrendered the records that protected his empire. He entered the ballroom with less power than he had possessed the day before, and more honesty than he had shown Evelyn since they met. Their eyes found each other. Victor tightened his grip beneath the table. "When your name is called, you will stand and read the statement." The master of ceremonies began praising the Halden Foundation. Evelyn noticed Victor's phone beside his champagne glass. A timer on the screen counted down toward 11 o'clock. She remembered the codes. Table numbers were locations. Dates were transfers. 11 was not a table. It was the private elevator leading to the underground records vault. Victor's final transfer was happening below them. Evelyn slowly lowered one hand beneath the white tablecloth. Roman watched. Her fingers moved carefully. Wine cellar. 11. Transfer. His eyes sharpened. Luca saw the change and signaled Maya. Roman signed back from across the room, keeping his movements near his jacket. "Can you move?" Evelyn answered beneath the table. "Not alone." Roman looked at her for a long second, then signed, "You were never alone. I was simply too proud to trust you." Emotion tightened Evelyn's throat, but before she could respond, Victor followed Roman's gaze. His eyes dropped toward her hidden hand. He seized her wrist. "What did you tell him?" Evelyn remained silent. Victor stood abruptly, pulling her up beside him as applause covered the movement. Beneath his jacket, he pressed a compact gun against her ribs. "Smile," he whispered, "or Roman watches you die before he can cross the room." Roman saw the shape of the weapon against the burgundy fabric. Every muscle in his body went still. Around the ballroom, his men reached inside their jackets. Federal agents shifted toward the exits. Victor dragged Evelyn toward the private elevator. Then every chandelier in Aurelia House went dark. Someone screamed. A single gunshot tore through the ballroom. For one suspended second, the ballroom held only darkness, the smell of burned powder, and the high metallic ringing that Roman could not hear. Then the emergency lights flashed on in harsh red strips along the walls. Guests screamed and dropped behind tables. Champagne glasses shattered across the marble floor. Victor still had one arm locked around Evelyn, but the gun was no longer pressed against her ribs. Vanessa stood 3 feet away, white-faced and shaking, both hands extended where she had struck Victor's wrist with a silver serving tray. The bullet had torn through a chandelier support above them, sending crystal fragments raining across the ballroom. "Run!" Vanessa gasped. Victor recovered first. He struck the tray aside, grabbed Evelyn by the back of her arm, and dragged her toward the private elevator. Roman moved immediately, but Evelyn saw Victor's men stepping into the aisles with weapons hidden beneath their jackets. She met Roman's eyes and signed one word with her free hand: "Wait." Roman stopped so abruptly that Luca nearly collided with him. It went against every instinct he possessed. Every part of him wanted to cross the room, break Victor's hand, and pull Evelyn behind him. But that was what Victor expected. A reckless charge would turn the ballroom into a battlefield filled with innocent people. Evelyn understood that before he did. Victor forced her through the elevator doors and pressed the button for the cellar level. "You should have taken the money," he said, breathing hard now, his public charm finally gone. "You should have understood that women like you do not survive wars between men like us." Evelyn looked at his reflection in the polished elevator wall. Her wrist ached where he held her, but her voice remained steady. Men like you survive because everyone else is trained to look away. The elevator opened into the underground service corridor. Victor pulled her toward the records vault while two armed men followed. Behind them, the ballroom erupted with shouted orders as federal agents identified themselves. Luca and Maya began moving guests toward the exits, while Roman took the stairs instead of the elevator, following the route Evelyn had marked on the seating chart. In the corridor below, Evelyn noticed the red fire suppression lever mounted beside the wine storage entrance. She had checked that system every quarter because management never remembered. The cellar did not use ordinary sprinklers. Water would destroy rare inventory, so the system released a dense, freezing vapor designed to starve flames of oxygen. Victor shoved her forward. "Open the vault." Evelyn reached toward the keypad, then suddenly drove her palm into the suppression lever. A violent hiss filled the corridor. White vapor exploded from the ceiling vents, swallowing the lights, the walls, and every visible shape. One of Victor's men cursed, the other fired blindly. The shot struck metal. Evelyn stamped down hard on Victor's foot, drove her elbow backward into his ribs, and twisted free. She dropped low and moved toward the wall, using her memory of the corridor instead of sight. Victor reached for her hair and missed. Roman emerged through the vapor like a dark shape cut from smoke. He caught Evelyn around the waist, pulled her behind a concrete support, and placed himself between her and the gunfire. She felt the hard rise and fall of his breathing. His hand moved in front of her face. "Hurt?" Evelyn shook her head and signed, "Vault. Records. Victor." Roman wanted to keep her behind cover, but she grabbed his wrist. "He is deleting everything." Roman read her lips. Luca's voice came through the earpiece Roman wore for vibration alerts, but he could not follow the words in the chaos. Evelyn pointed toward the service tablet mounted outside the wine office. "The event billing system backs up every transaction automatically." Roman understood. Together they moved through the vapor. Roman disabled one gunman near the elevator with a brutal strike to the wrist and shoulder. But he did not fire. Evelyn reached the tablet, entered the manager code she had been forced to memorize years earlier, and opened the event accounting network. A warning flashed across the screen. "Remote archive deletion in progress." Victor was inside the vault, trying to erase the offshore records. "Can you stop it?" Roman asked carefully, shaping the words where she could see them. "Not from here." Evelyn scanned the menu. "But I can force the system to create a legal audit copy." She opened the Gala account, changed the event status from private donor function to disputed financial transaction, and entered the emergency compliance code. The tablet demanded two authority approval. Evelyn looked at Roman. "It needs an owner's authorization." Roman entered the Valenti maritime credentials that would connect his company directly to the evidence. Once he approved it, there would be no way to claim ignorance later. Evelyn hesitated. "This could implicate you." Roman met her eyes and signed. "No more hidden rooms." He pressed his thumb to the authorization pad. The system froze for one breath, then displayed, "Full archive sent to Federal Compliance Server." Inside the vault, Victor shouted. The steel door opened and he emerged with a laptop under one arm and a gun in the other. His suit was soaked with condensation, his silver hair disordered, his face stripped of every respectable illusion. "Do you understand what you have done?" he shouted at Evelyn. "You were a waitress. You carried plates for people who never learned your name." Evelyn stood beside Roman rather than behind him. "That is why you never saw me." Victor raised the gun. Roman stepped forward, but Evelyn did not move away. "You hid your empire inside a restaurant because you assumed the people carrying your plates were too invisible to understand it." Victor's eyes burned with rage. "You think this makes you powerful?" "No," Evelyn said. "It proves I always was." Maya and two federal agents entered from the stairwell with weapons drawn. "Drop it, Victor." Victor looked from Maya to Roman, then to Evelyn. He seemed to understand at last that the exit he had planned no longer existed. He aimed at Roman. Luca struck his arm from the side. The gun skidded across the floor. Roman seized Victor by the collar and drove him against the vault door. For one dangerous second, everyone saw the man Chicago feared, the man who could have ended Victor's life with his bare hands and called it justice. Victor smiled through blood at the corner of his mouth. "Go on." Show her what you really are. Roman's grip tightened, then Evelyn touched his forearm. He looked at her. She did not plead. She only shook her head. Roman released Victor and stepped back. Maya moved in, forced Victor to the floor, and locked handcuffs around his wrists. Victor Halden, you are under arrest for conspiracy, money laundering, witness intimidation, attempted murder, obstruction of justice, and organized financial crimes. Victor stared at Evelyn as agents pulled him upright. You will disappear when his interest does. Evelyn looked at Roman. Then I will still have the truth. Upstairs, the ballroom was being evacuated when federal teams began seizing Victor's offices, devices, and private accounts. The encrypted archive Evelyn had triggered contained 7 years of transactions, including payments to shell companies, bribes to officials, and instructions linking Victor to the break-in at her apartment. Vanessa sat near the service entrance wrapped in a blanket while an agent took her statement. When Evelyn approached, Vanessa stood slowly. I am sorry. Her voice broke. I told myself I was afraid. I told myself I had no choice. Evelyn looked at the woman who had humiliated her, betrayed her location, and then saved her life. Fear explains what you did. It does not erase it. Vanessa lowered her eyes. I know. Testify. Tell the truth about everything. Then build a life where ambition does not require someone else to become smaller. Vanessa nodded through tears. Evelyn's voice softened, but her boundary did not. I forgive the person you are trying to become. I am not pretending the person you were did no damage. Months later, Aurelia House reopened beneath new ownership. Victor's shares had been seized, and the employees were given an equity stake through a court-supervised restructuring. Evelyn was appointed director of operations after an independent board reviewed years of records and discovered she had already been performing much of the work without the title or salary. She introduced transparent promotion standards, paid professional training, disability access policies, anti-harassment reporting, and basic American Sign Language classes for every front-of-house employee. Vanessa did not return. She accepted legal consequences, testified against Victor, and began working at a small neighborhood restaurant where no one knew her old title. Roman's life changed too. Valenti Maritime lost contracts. Several executives were charged. Roman remained under investigation, and the organization that once surrounded him with unquestioned loyalty grew smaller almost overnight. He did not complain. One quiet evening after closing, he entered Aurelia House alone. No convoy stopped outside. No guard stood when he crossed the room. He wore a dark jacket over an open-collar shirt, his hair slightly disordered from the wind, the scar near his jaw visible beneath rough stubble. Evelyn stood beside table 27, reviewing the next week's training schedule. Roman placed a folded piece of paper on the table. It was the note stolen from her apartment. Luca had recovered it from Victor's private files. Thank you for seeing the man before the reputation. Evelyn traced the old fold with one finger. You gave away your company to save me. Roman signed. Not all of it. She raised an eyebrow. A faint smile crossed his face. Most of it. Then his expression became serious. He wrote, I did not save you. You found the truth, stopped the transfer, and saved everyone in that ballroom. I only stopped standing in your way. Evelyn looked at him for a long moment. Trust does not return because one man makes one sacrifice. Roman nodded. I know, and I will not live inside another person's decisions, no matter how much he believes they protect me. I know. No hidden surveillance. No half-truths. No locked rooms. Roman held her gaze and signed. No more hidden rooms. Evelyn's eyes warmed. She answered in fluent ASL. I see you. But this time, you have to let me see everything. Roman extended his hand, not as a mafia boss making a claim, but as a man asking for the right to begin again. Evelyn placed her hand in his. Some people confuse kindness with weakness because true kindness does not need to announce itself. But Evelyn's compassion never required her to accept humiliation, betrayal, or control. Real kindness has boundaries. It tells the truth when silence would be safer, and it recognizes dignity before status, wealth, beauty, or power can influence the choice. The person society overlooks may be the one paying the closest attention, and sometimes that person is the only one capable of seeing what everyone else has missed. If Evelyn and Roman's story reminded you that loyalty must be earned and love should never cost your dignity, subscribe to the channel. Here, the women people underestimate do not wait helplessly to be rescued. They uncover the truth, challenge powerful men, and decide who has earned the right to stand beside them. And tell us in the comments. After everything Roman hid, would his sacrifice have been enough for you to trust him again? Or did he realize the truth too late?